how are you doing? And like pretty much how was 2025 and
That was
anything
a
you
weird year. Very tough year. Well, 24 was even worse. And so 25 was more of a redemption cycle, trying to get things back on track. Things had really kind of fallen off the rails in 24. I don't know if it was election or what, but business got real wonky. Um, we were struggling with staffing. We just really kind of fallen away, mostly because I had also gotten really distracted with a big project. And so with the eye off the ball, things kind of fell off. And so 2025 was more like, all right, let's rebuild. So I felt like it was really kind of a redemption year. Now that we've reset the foundation, 2026 will hopefully be a place where we can actually feel like we're starting to step forward again.
sweet? Yeah, that's good. That it sounds like it's a kind of a progressive year.
Yeah, we definitely move forward. I mean, some places are up 50, 60% year over year. Everywhere is up at least 20%.
Yeah.
So definitely a huge increase. And a lot of it, while that sounds like a great gain, a lot of it sometimes a couple places are just simply getting back to what it was.
Yeah.
So that's definitely it's been weird. It's one of those things where in hospitality, if you take your eye off the ball even for a second, it all slips away. So it's tough. I think that's the hardest part about hospitality is just the stamina, just to be able to keep going and sustain it for 10, 15, 20 years.
Absolutely. Yeah. What we heard this one thing from Keith Baxter, who owns Cool Beans. He was saying that it takes like an overnight success takes 20 years. It just takes so long to um, be consistent and consistently serve people and be hospitable and all that. And
Yeah.
it's definitely underrated.
Yeah. Well, it's easy to open a restaurant. It's really hard to keep it open for a decade.
Awesome. Well, already baller response, by the way. Cool. So this is kind of like the first kickoff question. Could you introduce yourself briefly and some of your experience in culinary and entrepreneurship?
Sure. So I'm Jesse Edmunds. I'm owner of Seven Hills Hospitality Group, founded in 2013. Prior to that, had worked in several places around the country. Yeah, at the end of the day, I've now been doing this for 24 years, self-taught, never went to culinary school, was able to uh, um, kind of build the business through luck and determination. And in the grand scheme of things, yeah, I've now built up to where we're 5 locations, a catering division, investments in a distillery, things like that. So it's a huge animal now.
Awesome. Cool. Yeah. And so what are you currently working on? Like, what are some things that you're proud of as of today in like your professional endeavors?
Right now, I think it's been a reshuffle into learning how to be a business owner. So, I opened Liberty. It was the first one at 27 with 2 friends, and we kind of made it work out of spite and sheer will. But honestly, never, definitely opened it too early. We were not ready to be good business owners. And then we just kind of we got lucky, built it up and opened several new restaurants, and they took off. They did well. But then again, when it came down to like learning how to actually run multiple restaurants, be a good business owner, that's when the cracks really started to show. So I would say right now it has been that humble resetting, working with people much smarter than me to take that step back and say, you know what, maybe growth isn't right now defined as to how many doors we have open, but the quality of what we have. And so that's really kind of been the big reset starting last year and into now. And I think for the first time ever, I'm actually coming into a year with goals, with KPIs, with a management team that has good direction, good numbers, how to get them, structure, process. Like these things are really starting to finally show themselves to the point where it's like, okay, now I think we're finally preparing ourselves to be at least a somewhat decent multi-unit company.
Awesome. Yeah. That was one thing that you being involved with Seven Hills Hospitality and like having that and owning several different restaurants, you have the unique experience of trying to balance multiple brick and mortar spaces and just like in general, multiple businesses. So to like an aspiring chef owner who's maybe considering the path of owning a restaurant, is it lucrative or would it be more so something like thinking in that aspect of having several different businesses and income streams? Like how should I be navigating that if I'm a person
Run,
considering
go do
that?
something else, stay in school. I don't know. That's a hard one. I mean, it really depends on, some people, they come up with a great idea and they're able to replicate it, standardize it, codify it, and then repeat it. So you talk to Brad from Canopy Road. He's got several Canopy Roads, but at the end of the day, it's Canopy Road. you make one work and then you start to scale that process and you're good to go. For whatever reason, I decided to do completely different concepts. So they are all completely different concepts that focus on completely different cuisines. They all have different challenges. They all have different structures to make them work in particular. And so figuring all that out has been interesting. But, I mean, at the end of the day, like, it's got to be worth it. Passion projects can only go so far. And so that's kind of part of that, like, business aspect of things. I mean, obviously, I don't have a big investor. It's me. And we've always reinvested everything ourselves, or myself. So it's lucrative enough to be able to fund additional restaurants, which is nice. And so now it's just a matter of like sitting back, kind of taking stock of what we have, and then deciding, how to proceed from here. But if you start really treating it like a business, I mean, it should produce a good return. But again, it takes being very good at being a business owner. And a lot of people are, I'm a really good cook. That doesn't make you a chef. Or I'm a really good chef. That sure as hell doesn't make you a business owner. Those are very different people, very different hats. And I've had to learn that the hard way. Even though people have told me that, I've known the concept of it for years. When I went to hospitality school at FSU, they were very clear on that. But it's until you get in and do it, make the mistakes. It sometimes can be very difficult to really understand the full breadth of what that means. That's, it's been the challenge. But I mean, if we optimize, if we run it properly, make a living. So
yeah, what you said is so spot on with at least an outsider's experience like Michael and I about just documenting the restaurant process and speaking to restaurateurs like yourself. It's the chef versus like a restaurateur chef owner. It's a whole different ball game.
Different animals.
Yeah, it's crazy. The one thing I wanted to ask you about, because you uniquely have this perspective, is you've had to conceptualize several different types of restaurants. How do you navigate that conceptualization process? If I'm a person thinking about an idea to bring to market, like what should I be thinking about and how should I even come to that idea?
I mean, it comes down to understanding your market. What are you bringing to the table? Is it unique? Is it something that people want? Is it trendy? That's a big one, because while trendy can bring you attention, it can also be a flash pan and people move on. So you have to have at the end of the day, core fundamentals. You look at the brands that have been around for 20, 30, 40 years, irregardless of trends or social media or whatever it is, those are the brands that fall back to these core fundamentals of the human experience. And so you ultimately have to have a concept that can build off of that foundation and then maybe give it a different spin. And then it has to be something you actually give a crap about, because again, it's the stamina, it's the mental fortitude to get up every day and want to continue to grind it out and do it. Yeah, it really kind of depends. I mean, we've definitely come up with a couple concepts that, the concept itself was sound, but I lost sight of it. I didn't care about it or want to continue to do it. And so that's kind of the tricky part, especially when you're kind of doing it yourself and you don't have partners to kind of carry that torch or help you with it if something were to stumble, if you will. So, when you're conceptualizing your idea, you have to understand, does it for one stand on the common pillars of the basic human experience and the core things that are going to make a hospitality program successful? If it doesn't stand on that and you're simply relying on a TikTok trend, if you can somehow make that work for 6 months, great, but you may be in trouble after you raise money and build out a business around it. Yeah, and it's something you have to be able to give yourself to. This industry is very personal. It has to be something that is an expression of you as a person in a way, or an expression of a collective or something like that. So I don't know, trying to find my words on that one. It's kind of a tough one. It's really nuanced. You kind of get an idea what I'm getting at though. I mean, at the end of the day, it's got to sit on those core pillars. Got to be something you're excited and passionate about, something you're willing to take to the next level.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, even like what you said about the passion of it, and then having the partners and the consistency required to like see it to fruition and stuff. That's just something that with passion, would you say you have to be passionate for hospitality to be involved within like restaurant ownership and stuff like that?
I think what's the definition of hospitality? And so I was actually having a conversation with an applicant. She wants to come on and be a baker. And I was asking her, like, she's like, I'm really drawn to hospitality. I'm like, well, a lot of people think of hospitality as the front end direct customer interaction. They don't think about the whole picture. And so when her and I got to talking more about that, I was like, well, if you're going to be in the back as a baker, how are you extending that hospitality? And, her answer was pretty brilliant of, well, I'm extending my hospitality by ensuring that the guest is getting the best possible product consistently. And so, me, for example, I'm a cook, and I definitely belong either in the office or in the kitchen, not on the floor or behind the bar talking to people. And so what I tend to do is I know that that is a deficiency of my skill. So what I do is I hire people way better than me to do that for me. And we still share the same vision of having people come in and be very happy and enjoy their product and enjoy the consistency, enjoy the quality of what we're trying to do. But I'm better suited for ensuring that that product's going out well and it's a well-designed thing and it's executed properly. Basically, they can worry about making sure the customer's having a great time and not have to worry about the plate that hits the table and it's crap. So that's what I try to do. Obviously, 180 employees, things slip through the cracks, but you can't make everybody fire on all cylinders all the time. But you have to kind of understand where you fit in the hospitality puzzle and then be aware enough to hire people that fit the other pieces. So you don't have to be on the floor, that kind of like, that restaurant owner that's walking table to table and shaking hands and schmoozing everybody. Like, that's the last thing I'm good at. But that's okay. That doesn't mean that I'm bad at this. It just means that I can recognize that's not my strong suit. And I know a lot of people who are phenomenal at it, and I make sure they have the platform to stand on.
Awesome. That was such a great response. That makes me think about just in general delegation and where that comes in, and essentially the relationship that if you want to be a business owner as well as have balance and stuff, like how do you think about delegation now as the owner like of Seven Hills Hospitality and stuff and navigating that versus maybe 10 years ago when you were first starting your restaurant?
I did what I think almost every other early business owner or young chef does, which is, well, I'll just do it myself. I'll just throw myself at it for 100 hours a week and do it myself. And, you tell yourself lies like I'm leading from the front. I'm setting the example. And, if I work harder, it'll command more respect. And usually it's the opposite. Usually you end up stepping on people and you stifle them and you don't give them the growth. And you get tired because you're human. And then you're not projecting yourself as you would hope to be perceived. And so it ends up being very difficult. One of the most important things anyone's ever told me is the hardest thing you'll ever do in your life is open your second restaurant. Now, 3 to 500 is easy, but it's 1 to 2. That's where you actually understand if you're a business owner or not versus just a chef who got lucky, because you can't be in 2 places at once. If I was putting myself into my first restaurant 100 hours a week and muscling it through, that's cool, but I can't be in 2 places at once for 200 hours a week. So now what? That's when you learn to create systems, to delegate, to trust, to teach people, things like that. And it's the absolute hardest part of it. Teach anyone how to cook, but it is so difficult to build a team.
It is hard to build a team because there's like a lot of trust involved, I would imagine. And even I have 2 questions with Liberty, for instance. Correct me if I'm wrong. You said you had like partners that were kind of with you, and now with even like if you're going into a joint venture on something like that, how does that delegation and I guess that trust and stuff, like how should you be thinking about that? Just going into like your first or second restaurant, like having a partner or maybe doing it yourself. Do you have any preference or like experience with either or?
That's a tough one. So I think my situation's relatively unique. I had 2 partners in the beginning of Liberty, and one partner from the beginning was kind of 1 foot in, 1 foot out in a good way. Like in the sense that like he was incredibly talented as bartender, but was also building a talent for tattooing. And in his mind, he's like, well, I'm really good at this bartending thing. I've just opened this business. This creates one path. I have this tattooing thing that is still trying to get it off the ground, still trying to learn and be better. But ultimately he had a big picture, and his big picture was to be a family man. And he ultimately made a choice of, the tattooing could offer me closer to the 9 to 5 and I could be home with my family. I'm really good at this bartending thing and I could make some money for this, and we have opened a business and it's successful and that's all well and good, but then I'm working late and I'm missing my family. Because of that, we always knew he was divided. So we kind of put in an immediate little parachute or button to push of like, if he was decided to go the tattooing route, it was easy, clean. We all understood and we knew that. So he ultimately decided to go tattooing and built a beautiful business, is raising the most amazing family. So that was the right move. The other partner, him and I very much had a very clear expectation. He run the front, run the bar, I run the back. And we trusted each other in the sense that he is not a chef and he has not run kitchens. I'm not a bartender and I've not run bar programs. And so at the end of the day, we would have conversations and plenty of disagreements, and he would want to go one way and I'd be like, man, I don't think this is working. The big thing is we had to swallow the pride and look at the numbers and really focus in on the numbers, what was driving them. And even though maybe him or I had a different vision mentally in our head of what it should be, at the end of the day, our customer base told us what they wanted, and we either adapted or we didn't. And so him and I, once we kind of figured that out and really began to trust each other, at the end of the day, we had each other's backs and we were going to be there for each other. Like, that's when things really clicked in and we worked really well together. He ended up moving on because he decided he fell in love with his true passion in life, which is distilling spirits. So he had served them for years and now he wanted to make them. And the laws, especially at the time, were very clear. You could not have any involvement between a manufacturer and a vendor, which we technically are vendors being a bar. You have the distributor who brings it from the manufacturer to the vendor, and you have the manufacturer. You can't cross those lines in the state of Florida. And so him and I came up with an exit strategy for him to be able to go do that. He had to divest because he wanted to go pursue that passion. And now he's arguably one of the better distillers in the Southeast. So again, super successful, absolutely killed it, and just beyond proud of him. Started with 3 partners in total, down to just me. That was right as Costanera, our second concept, was opening. So I was opening a second restaurant while they were divesting. So that was definitely tricky. But ultimately, we have a lot of love for each other and can sit down and have a beer and everyone's good. We all found our own niche. But that all stemmed from that initial trust. I know that they're better than me. And again, are guests happy? Are we growing? Are we listening to feedback and adjusting? In a way that makes sense. You can knee jerk and try to change things immediately, or you can also establish your identity and double down. Yeah. Through all of that, we were able to trust each other and support each other. I was the ambitious one that wanted to go open 20,000 restaurants. Rick was a lot more even keel, and I respected that about him. And a lot of times when he was calming me down, he had really good reasoning behind it, and I had to listen to him. And sometimes when he was going to be too conservative, I was able to pull him out a little bit, and we were able to make an investment that hit. I don't know. Surrounding yourself with people that have complementary skills, then trusting that. I don't know. I also like being a solo operator in a lot of ways too. The hard part is that you find yourself in a situation where no one else will ever care like I do. And that's okay. That's reasonable. Sometimes you have to, in the process of delegation, you have to trust that things will not be perfect. And sometimes you have to make a compromise on standards in order to have just time to yourself. So it's an interesting thing. Partners help with that. I knew that if Rick was there, that service was never going to slip. He cared about it as much as I did. He was invested in it. It was our game. It's hard not having that, but I have the next best thing, which are phenomenal managers who do genuinely give a shit.
Yeah, that's great. And having people that care as much as you do, like, it is hard I would imagine it's hard for people to find people like that and be able to trust what you're like baby essentially with them. And the thing that comes to mind, well, one, the question that comes to mind with that is on the topic of your latest restaurant and I don't know if this is the latest, but Link and stuff, with what's the difference between, say, El Cocinero, a certain type of restaurant, and Link as a type of restaurant as it relates to you and essentially what kind of those systems you can create and put in place so you can have that ability to delegate and trust and maybe expand and stuff.
Yeah.
What's the difference between those two types?
It's the perfect example. So we opened Cocinero in a time when there was a huge momentum to understand and pay homage to Latin cuisine, which I am just absolutely infatuated with. It's one of the most amazing things ever. And so for me, that was a bit of a love letter for Cocinero. And we did things that no one in this town was doing at the time. We were sourcing heirloom corn that was derived from that would have been grown in this area by the Native Americans 500 years ago. We had that corn revived due to a partnership with the University of Florida and was having a contract grown in North Georgia. So we were bringing in Creek Indian heirloom corn. We were nixtamalizing it with wood ash. We were grinding our masa every day. We were pressing our tortillas from scratch, hand pressing our tortillas every day. We were making our flour tortillas from scratch. So we were doing, no one was even coming close to that. We were exploring types of tacos that weren't just like little cubes of this mystery meat with, a little bit of red for, we'll call it pastor and stuff like that. So we were really trying to do things to a level that's indicative of the complexity and the care that's required to execute that cuisine well. We gave a lot of time to tequila and mezcals, which again, no one in our area was doing at the time. There was a lot of culinary interest in it. So it was really easy to find very skilled cooks, but pre-COVID, who were all about learning that cuisine and able to dedicate themselves to it and really give a lot to that cuisine. So we're able to bring in really high quality people because that's what it takes. I mean, you go to a taco truck and there's 4 or 5 people crammed in there, like cranking. It's a very labor intensive, very complex food. Post-COVID, that changed. And what few cooks were left that were really passionate about this as a career, they wanted to be considered more fine dining or higher end restaurants to pursue their careers, which is fair. No one wanted to work in the taco restaurant or wanted a little taco shop kind of thing. So it was very difficult to continue to find people of the caliber required to execute that cuisine fairly. It was also just rife with inconsistencies. I mean, if the tortilla guy was having a bad day, every taco was off that night. If the app guy was off that day and didn't choose the right avocados, I mean, at any given point, I was actively managing the rightness of 400 avocados in the building. And that's just for the guacamole. My God, imagine everything else going on with the menu that we had. So complex, so labor intensive, super inconsistent. And at the end of the day, customers started to not come. It had really fallen off after a 9-year run. And I honestly had really lost a lot of the passion for it. I was exhausted by it. The constant, just the constant struggle to maintain standards was incredibly difficult. And in the background, I had always been like, man, this link concept was always something that I had really thought about. I thought about that since I've had that in my mind since 2014 of like, man, there's a million burger joints, but every culture on the planet has sausage. Everyone, it's so ubiquitous. It's one of the largest categories represented in the grocery store. Most people don't realize that or think about that. But think about all the places you see a sausage. Every culture's got it. And the thing is you can make it in mass, you can make it wonderfully, and you can make it consistently. And so right now with Link, I have one person who's actually my former Cocinero manager, still with me. And her and I developed these recipes in an Excel spreadsheet where all you have to do is enter in the weight of the meat and it calculates everything to the gram. So you have hyper consistency, and then she's able to produce it and it stores and it comes up quick. I can have one good person on the line and her making the sausage, and I can deliver something that's unique, delicious, affordable, and consistent. It took 10 to 12 people to open Cocinero on a Tuesday. Now, I can run Link with 2 to 3 people and we can do the same revenue. So it has brought a lot of simplicity. It has brought a lot of consistency. There's still work to be done. Don't get me wrong, but it's just the opportunity for that to scale, grow, it's just freaking good. It's just delicious. You go in, you sit down, I have the buffalo chicken dog and on the, Hawaiian sweetbread with the homemade ranch and fresh veggies and the blue cheese. And it was insane. It was so good. And I'm like, damn, I made this. This is cool. And there's nothing like it. You can't get that anywhere else right now. I can go get a burger. I could drive a mile down the road and drive past 20 burgers, but there's nowhere in North Florida can you get anything like what we're making there. There's hot dog places, but there's not that. And so for me, it's that was a big pivot.
That's awesome though, because it's kind of simplified and honed in on a niche, and it's so easily operable from what I'm hearing in it. It's like the amount of value from it. It's like that Pareto principle of 20/80. It's like you prioritize the most valuable things, which is customers being happy and fed consistently and it being delicious. And
look at the reviews. The reviews are insane. It's just consistent 5 stars. When people come in and they try it, the number of people that come in for lunch and then I see them for dinner within 48 hours is startling. But it's everyone has a different story. Everyone has a different favorite sausage, and I love that. And that was the point. So you have someone who comes in and they're like, oh, my family's German background, love this bratwurst, or, oh, my family's from Eastern Europe, the kielbasa is great. I've got a guy who's the former, who's a former chef at Commander's Palace in New Orleans. He comes in and eats the andouille once a week, and, what's crazy is we have the retail side of it as well. So we offer it by the pound. And so I'll be sitting there, working the line. I'll see a guy come up and he'll just be like, hey, you guys got any more breakfast sausage back there? I've got family coming into town. He wants to buy 5 or 6 links because he's got family coming in. So we'll package it up for him, sell them to him by the pound, and he's off. So it's really cool what it's doing. It's quick. It's cool. You can go to Whataburger and spend $14 and get Whataburger and wait 30 minutes in line, or you can come into Link and wait 10 minutes and get something homemade that's just as filling for 50 cents more. And it's like the people back there made that, it's not just fast food. So it's kind of cool.
Yeah, that's super cool. And it's effective. And on that topic of just like the effectiveness of it, the focus and the niche of it, I would like to ask you about Raise. I know we talked about it, but I remember you sharing just some of your insight with Raise and like that experience. Would you be cool sharing that?
Yeah, well, I mean, that was simple. We went up there, we had a mission, we had a plan, we had a vision for it. But that kind of that timed poorly with another big project that just took my eye off the ball. And what ended up happening is we basically had a very, very, very vocal, very small minority of customers who they weren't connecting with Raise because they were lamenting the loss of the previous concept in the space. We weren't that. We were never going to be that. But that when they voiced their opinion about it, we kind of pivoted to try to appease that or shoot the middle ground. And with that, we lost sight of what we went up there to do. And then the distraction kept me from understanding that or realizing that for a long time. And by the time we had kind of figured out, oh, yep, this is what was wrong, too late. It was just too late. We also had a couple other opportunities fall in our lap where we were like, look, we could continue to punch this out. We could continue to try to fight this and like fight for this in the sense of like, continuing it going. But then when these other opportunities presented themselves, we just were like, listen, I can go do, 1.5 times that revenue and cut all the expenses of having another restaurant out. It was made so much more sense to pivot. So, it was just kind of listening to the world around us and what we needed. And then again, going back to like, let's take a step back. Let's focus in on the things that are working. Let's focus in on the things that need our attention more than anything, and realize that was a very strong lesson learned of keeping your eye on the ball, continuing to be passionate and staying true to your vision versus like knee jerking to a vocal minority and then losing yourself in the sauce.
Got you. Yeah. It's kind of it's like a like a confidence in the vision and locked in on what you want to do and believing in that enough to keep it going. I think even what you said too about the menu, having to switch things up and maybe consider what's working, what's not. I think, could you explain like the difference between switching it up, but still within the direction or vision that you have versus like completely switching up to where it's detrimental to?
Yeah, I mean, we had opened that concept up with the intent of celebrating coastal fare, seafood, seafood, Southern cuisine, and presenting it well, done in a place like you would find in pretty much any other big city. I mean, we weren't really trying to reinvent the wheel, but like we were wanting to offer things on the level of like Husk or some other really nice restaurants where some people would consider, and probably Tallahassee would consider that fine dining, but then people in Charleston are just like, no, this is just a good restaurant. Like, this is just our good neighborhood restaurant that cares. So that's kind of what we were shooting for. And then whenever we were getting that feedback, we kind of pivoted into, kind of what the previous concept had done before us. So instead of maybe tweaking slightly what we were doing or doubling down and holding firm on it and just saying, no, we're different. This is what we are. We kind of moved more towards sandwiches and casual, but there's so much of that up there. So like we just became like, why would I go to there and pay $1 more for a burger when I could just go here and get a burger? It's a good burger. It's not the same burger, but it's still good enough. Yeah, it's just there's a difference between tweaking within a category and then just completely changing what you are. And that was definitely a mistake we had made. We just became a more expensive version of what was out there. So yeah, made total sense why people were like, this isn't worth it.
Got you. Yeah. All your responses so far have been great, Jesse. I think it's cool to hear just like imagining somebody on that route, trying to consider like, okay, what should I do? How should I be thinking about this?
I mean, best example I've got is like, I remember sitting at the bar at Ray's and this guy pulls up in a $100,000 Jaguar. He sits down at the bar, 4 seats down from me, doesn't know who I am, and it's fine. I'm on the computer. Dude's wearing a $25,000 watch, very successful individual. And we had a grouper sandwich on the menu. Fresh, never frozen, black grouper that had been swimming 48 hours previous to him being served this sandwich. It was done really well with like fresh crudité and horseradish sauce. It was really nice grouper sandwich done with almost a Parisian style to it. Just something a little bit different than your usual like blackened with remoulade, which you can get a million places. And we had it on the menu for $24. The grouper cost us $23 a pound. So we had $12 just in there. We were running insane food cost on it, but it was $24 and it's a half pound of grouper. And this guy just starts like inappropriately lambasting the bartender about how we were committing highway robbery and how dare we try to charge $24 for a grouper sandwich, and how if he wants a good grouper sandwich, he's going to drive up to Thomasville and go to Jonah's. It's 45 minutes away, 25, 30 minutes away from there. And I'm like, that's kind of weird. So I pull the menu up for Jonah's in Thomasville, which phenomenal restaurant, by the way. I go there all the time. They have an 8-ounce black grouper, fresh and beautiful grouper sandwich on. It's a 7-ounce cut, and it's $26. And I'm like, okay, so you're literally yelling at my bartender because you're paying $2 less for an extra ounce of fish, same if not better quality, right in your neighborhood. I'm confused. That was the clientele in a nutshell. And we had a really hard time with, again, it's like I could have just been like, screw you, dude. Go back to Jonah's and pay $26 and stay true to the vision of what we were doing, which was good. But instead, we switched it to salmon and we made it a little bit cheaper. Still a great sandwich, but at this point, we had moved completely away from what we were trying to do. And while we were offering great North Atlantic salmon, half the price. But even then, if we're charging accordingly, so we can pay people well and keep the lights on, we come out $1.50 more expensive than 4 other places serving a fish sandwich around us. So why would people come to ours? It wasn't special enough. That's where we lost our way. Got you.
Yeah, it's hard because it's like your clientele and the people that are within reach of the restaurant. It's like, okay, it's like you want to make something for them, but you also don't want to cater to them because you have an idea and you want to make sure you stick through that, because the reason you had the idea is because you probably did the research and kind of knew that it would be different. So yeah, that's tough.
Yeah. But and the thing is with other concepts, I held firm. I mean, when we opened Hawthorne as a bread focused bakery, especially at that time in 2019, it was really, really big, like gluten-free craze. And everyone's like, you're an idiot. Why are you opening a bread bakery when everyone's cutting out gluten? And I'm like, well, bread's been the foodstuff of the human species for 10,000 years. I'm pretty sure it's not dying today. But at the same time, like, instead of completely knee-jerking and going into something that's not bread-focused, we stayed true, but we did make other tweaks so that we could accommodate someone who may not be eating as much gluten. We couldn't be gluten-free totally because obviously the environment we're making bread, it's airborne. But at the same time, we could still accommodate people who were cutting that out of their diet. Or we could formulate our bread to be true natural fermentation sourdough so that someone with a sensitivity doesn't get affected. And so we've been able to kind of, I'm still producing beautiful, wonderful bread, but it's still in the same tier and quality of what I visually set out. If anything, it's actually better. I use that feedback, I feel like, to get better, but I still stayed true to the core. And that's definitely the mistake I made with Ray's, was not staying true to the core.
Just in general for finances, if I'm really trying to open a restaurant and like one of the big barriers is capital, how should I even think about finding funding or securing funding or anything like that to bring my concept to life?
Man, I have no idea. The reason why I say that is because I have no idea. Once I figure that out, or if you find out, let me know. Because essentially, I think we were very lucky in the sense that there are several things in life that allowed us to get Liberty open. So with Liberty, we opened it with very, very, very little money. We basically got laughed out of every single bank in town. A bunch of 27-year-olds want to open a bar. Ooh, that's a safe investment. So no banks were about it. We had no historicals. SBA wouldn't touch us. We had saved, some cash personally, but nowhere near enough. But our landlord actually believed in us. And so he gave us a little bit of money, not a lot. Gave us about $30,000 extra in additional build out improvement credits. And then the deal was almost about to fall through. And we had a family member come through, and it was very small. It was like $70,000. So we literally opened Liberty, I think, for like 120 total, which is nowhere near enough, especially considering the state of the space. We had a good landlord. He did a lot of cleanup and build out for us. But a lot of it came down to our previous experience. And so we built that place ourselves. Like me and my partners, we built that bar. We built the back bar. We painted the walls ourselves. We did as much electrical and plumbing as we possibly could because my family has a background in construction. I did everything I could legally do. Maybe a few things I probably shouldn't have done, but everything passed inspection, so we're good. Nothing's burned down. But we did everything we could to do it. And one of the big things was crazy to think about. Liberty's got a pretty big kitchen in the back of it. And when we first opened, what we did was we invested in the infrastructure. So we made sure we had good electrical everywhere. We had good plumbing everywhere, but we didn't have money for equipment. So we didn't buy a walk-in. We didn't have stoves. We didn't even start with a hood. couldn't even afford a hood for the space. And so we were serving like cheese boards and little things that we could do that didn't require a hood, or things that we could do because our goal was to sell booze. So we put as much, we had no decor even, for God's sakes. I mean, some of our first 1-star reviews were just how stark and blank the space was. But ultimately what we did was we wanted it to become something that we grew into as we figured out the identity. And so we intentionally did leave it blank, but that was also a cost saving measure. Now, of course, it's full and everything on the wall has a story, but the kitchen was like laughably empty. Like we had this big space with tons of outlets and tons of drains and stubbed out plumbing, but there were no sinks, or like there was like one sink that we were legally required to have, or like we had no walk-in, we had no big equipment back there. The server station at the time was literally a folding table in the back, and that's where they would roll silverware. So we literally opened because we had brought in 1 keg for each of our beer taps. It's all we could afford, and we were out of money. And our choice was to like, all right, let's open. We have to open in 3 days and start selling this beer to start generating something in order for us to keep going. And then we just constantly reinvested. I mean, I think I built the first tables we opened with, I built with plywood from Lowe's, trimmed it out, sanded it, urethaned them. Like we bought our chairs, came out of another local restaurant that they were just they were buying better chairs. And so we just got their old chairs. We, spent a week sanding them, painting them, recovering them. Like it was bad. I mean, I was paying myself $480 a week, $12 an hour for 40 hours. And working 100 hours a week, doing everything I could to put everything back in and just get it to where it was actually sort of a functioning restaurant. It took a couple years, but then once things really took off, we kept that mentality. And so, I mean, I've done almost all the build outs. I mean, you go to like bar 1903, I built the bar, built the back bar, built the bathrooms, refinished the entire place. Like all that carpentry work I did saved me hundreds of thousands of dollars. So it's kind of been tough because it's really fallen down to bootstrapping and resourcefulness. I'd probably say the single biggest attribute that I'm trying to teach my son is if you have any quality in life, it's the ability to figure it out. And that's pretty much it. Just figure it out. Having the gumption, having the wherewithal to say, I don't know how to do that. I'm going to figure it out how to do it. And taking the time to go and learn a skill or dedicate yourself to working on it. Best thing you could do.
Yeah, it takes a lot of discipline and commitment just to see something you have no clue how it's done. And
yeah, and then you say, well, and most of the time you figure it out and you're like, was this easy, really? Wow, this is not bad at all, But yeah, so I don't know. I guess I don't have an investor. I don't have banks. If anything, after opening like 2 or 3 restaurants that showed profit, then I was able to go and get an SBA loan. And even then, that took 6 months and a nightmare. It was awful. So it just, especially now that COVID's over, I don't know how people get funding right now. Like it's scary. There's some unscrupulous lenders and sharks. I mean, there's some wild things out there that are very dangerous. I don't know. It's crazy. Once you figure it out, let me know.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it sounds like you got to be careful and where like you have the concept and stuff, but make sure, you have a plan and how to do it and make sure that plan doesn't backfire too. It's a long-term thing, but
that can be a powerful tool if used correctly and used responsibly. But you're also, at the end of the day, no matter how responsible or how much you think you've got it nailed down, sometimes it just doesn't go the way you want it to. And you got to be ready for the consequences.
For sure. Well, Jesse, thank you so much. That's pretty much everything within the time that we just wanted to talk about. And question is, was there anything that I didn't ask you that you wanted to talk about, or we good?
Not that I can think of at the moment, really.
Okay. Cool. Well, awesome, man. Hopefully this interview provides some good insight into anybody that's kind of starting the journey or considering it. Maybe they were in the position you were prior to Liberty. Like, here's what you should be thinking about. Here's a real life look at it. So thank you so much for your time and knowledge.